What's up guys, it's Matt B. I review running shoes here on YouTube, and today we are taking a look at the Adidas Supernova Rise. And right off the bat I have to tell you that this is a daily trainer, but this time Adidas is using a PEBA based foam in the midsole. So yeah, it's kind of like a super foam in a daily trainer. But how does it perform and what does it feel like? Let's get into it. My friends, this video is in partnership with the team over at Roadrunner Sports. Now, Roadrunner Sports and Adidas were good enough to send me a pair of the Supernova Rise for the purpose of review. However, they don't have any editorial input into this video, and they are not going to get to see this video before you do here on YouTube. With that said, the Adidas Supernova Rise will cost you $140. And I don't know about you, but seeing $140 with the price of so many other shoes just going through the roof actually strikes me as pretty good. Now, I know there are a lot of shoes out there for $140, but it often seems like we're being groomed to pay higher and higher prices for running shoes, and it's always just refreshing to see when you can get a nice new pair of daily training running shoes for $140. So I guess what I'm saying is it's immediately good to see that Adidas hasn't jacked the price just because they're changing things up a little with a Supernova Rise. All right, as far as specs go, we have 35 in the heel, 25 in the forefoot for a 10mm drop. Now a 10mm drop is, I don't know, kind of traditional for a daily trainer, and I know there are a lot of you out there that aren't going to like that 10mm drop, but it does make for a very comfortable drop, a very comfortable ride, and I think that's evidenced by seeing so many companies do a 10mm drop in their daily trainers. I was also happy to see the weight of the Supernova Rise. Now Adidas claims that a US men's size 9 tips the scale at 9.8 ounces or 277 grams. However, in my size, a US men's size 13, it tips the scale at 12.1 ounces or 342 grams. So actually not too shabby. It's not a race day shoe. We're not expecting a feather light shoe here, but in my size for 342 grams, I'm actually glad to see it. And of course, we're going to talk more about how this shoe rides in just a second, but I know a lot of us, we can get hung up on weight. So for a daily trainer, 342 grams in my size is pretty fantastic. Now, obviously, and I've already said it, this is a road running shoe and it is a daily trainer. It's kind of made for everything. It's made for those bread and butter miles rather than specific workouts or specific events like races. This is the shoe that you're going to put on most of the time and just knock out what you need to do. And by that, I mean, it's probably best for your easy runs. But I've tested it in a couple of different scenarios and we'll talk about that when we talk about the ride. But let's talk about feel and fit. And we're going to start at the top and work our way down. And guys, this heel collar, this is plush. There is a lot of padding around this heel collar. Now, if I just put my fingers in right here and I'm feeling around, I can feel that the padding is definitely biased to the top of the heel collar, and then it comes down to a lot thinner at the bottom, and that's just going to make that heel collar feel like it's gripping your foot. It's really going to contribute to a nice locking feel. And then the heel counter, this thing is rigid. This thing is like an entire heel cup. And I think the structure and the rigidity just goes part and parcel with what this shoe looks like. It looks like a heavily padded, very plush shoe. It's going to grab onto your heel and not let go. And that was actually my experience. I think this is going to be a very comfortable shoe for a lot of people. And also, I think maybe because of the colorway, I think this is also going to double as like a good walking around, a daily shoe. But actually, I think the women's colorway is a little better for that, just because there's not as much green. Oh, and this would be a good place to tell you that the Supernova Rise is available in gender-specific fits. So Adidas has made the last different for males and females in order to just make the all-around comfort better. Now, ultimately, the shoe is the same. So even though I have the male version, I feel pretty confident in saying that it's going to be the same as the female version. As far as the upper goes, Adidas is using an engineered sandwich knit upper, and I thought maybe it was going to feel a little oppressive, but that wasn't the case. Now, when I did go ahead and put my hand into the shoe, and I kind of felt how thick it was, and then I took a closer look, I realized that the upper is actually not that thick, which is surprising in a daily trainer, because sometimes we get these uppers that are just very thick. They don't breathe well, especially in daily trainers, and that wasn't my experience with the Supernova Rise. Now, of course, I am testing this in the wintertime, but I'm testing it in the wintertime in Florida. I guess what I'm saying is that I haven't tested it in super warm temperatures, but it probably has been warmer than where you live, and I haven't experienced any overheating in my foot. So all in all, it's a very comfortable and breathable mesh upper. As far as the structure of the upper goes, we do have an underlay coming around the toe box. That's just keeping that mesh upper off your toes. I had plenty of room in the toe box. Now, I wouldn't say it's a wide toe box, but it's definitely not narrow. And then obviously we've got the Adidas stripes on both sides. And you see on my colorway, we've got this kind of a green brick pattern that kind of wraps around the entire shoe. Now, obviously this is just an aesthetic accent, but it's also giving the upper a little structure. And then we've got the overlay coming right along the eyelet chain, just giving a little extra support. Moving on to the tongue. The tongue is just like the heel collar. It's super plush, guys. Like, if I'm honest, I look at this tongue and I think, oh, it's so thick, it's so plush. I like them to be a little thinner. But the thing thing is that the comfort that you get with this level of plushness, this level of cushioning, can't be understated. Again, when you put your foot into the Supernova Rise, it feels very good. So it's thick, it's plush, it gives you a good lockdown. Now the tongue isn't gusseted, but we do have a lace loop right in the middle. And I guess because of the lace loop, I didn't experience the tongue moving around at all. I actually had a very good lockdown in this shoe. Okay, let's move down to the midsole, because I think this is the star of the show, especially because Adidas is using a brand new foam and it's being debuted in the Supernova Rise, and that is Dream Strike Plus. Now, Dream Strike Plus is a PEVA-based foam, but it uses 20% bio-based materials. Now, I should point out that the PEVA-based midsole in the Dream Strike Plus doesn't ride like other PEVA-based shoes that I've used. To me, I hear PEVA, I think, oh, race day shoes is typically the foam that is used in a lot of companies' race day shoes. It's lighter, it's more responsive, and it generally has that feeling of pop. I think Adidas has tweaked the formulation of the Dream Strike Plus, so it doesn't ride like that. It does ride like a daily trainer to me, but we'll talk more about that in just a second. But this PEVA-based midsole isn't the end of the story. On my colorway, you can see on the bottom here, we've got this gray bit of midsole foam here. This is actually part of the bottom-loaded energy rods. And the whole energy rod system does run from the heel all the way up to the forefoot, but it's mostly noticed here in the middle. And then we've got these gray lines coming up. And just like in previous Adidas shoes, these energy rods follow the metatarsals of your foot, but these aren't the same energy rods that you're going to get in some of the other shoes. They're actually made of a denser foam. I imagine it's some kind of EVA. In fact, I have the durometer right here, so let's just go ahead and do a quick test at the different durometer readings of these foams. Okay, right here in the back, we have the Dream Strike Pro coming in at 30. If I drop it down to the gray part here at the bottom, these are the support energy rods. It's given me a reading of 41, 40. Okay, now let's try this energy rod here on the bottom, and 41. So the energy rods are definitely a lot denser. They're a lot firmer than the bulk of the Dream Strike Plus. And what these energy rods do is just give a feeling of support. They're kind of supporting the PEVA foam and just making the whole ride seem a little smoother. And I'm sure that these support rods contribute to the very smooth feeling ride, but that can't be the end of the story. We've also got a very distinctive geometry of the Supernova Rise. Now, there's not an extreme toe spring, but it is noticeable. But I think more noticeable is right here with the heel bevel. If I hold it up, you can see this heel bevel is definitely biased to the lateral side, and this extreme heel bevel is just going to make our touchdowns that much smoother. You might notice that when you're running in shoes that don't have a heel bevel, sometimes your foot tends to scuff. At least for me, as a heel striker, at least when I'm running very slow, I definitely get that scuffing sometime. And if I'm totally honest, I probably think this heel bevel is the main element that makes this shoe smooth for me. But of course, when you combine that with the toe spring and these support rods, they all come together to make the ride work right. Okay, so I've already said the ride is smooth. It's incredibly smooth. It does feel good. But for me, I was surprised how firm the ride actually feels, especially when I push my thumbs into the foam like this. Guys, it feels very soft. Feels like this ride is going to be as plush as this heel collar, and it's not. And that's not actually a bad thing. And because this is a daily trainer, I think we don't want the most plush ride all the time. We need something to kind of be in the middle. And I think the Supernova Rise kind of toes that center line very well, if not leaning over just a little bit into the firmer side. Now, in my testing of a lot of other shoes, I have tested shoes that are remarkably more firm than this. So I don't want you thinking this is overly firm. I'm just saying that it was firmer than I expected it to be. But I'll tell you a benefit of that firmness is that even though we have 35 in the heel, 25 in the forefoot, the Supernova Rise gave me a sensation of road feel. Now, I know I'm not feeling the road with that much stack height, but because of the firmness, it gave me that sensation of road feel, which made me feel a little more in control. It made me feel like I was running on a stable platform. And although this is not a stable shoe in any way, it is a neutral shoe. It does ride very stable. I think we got a nice wide base here too, which is also contributing to that feeling of safety and stability. But what I was saying is that because of the firmer foam, this shoe picks up the pace a little better than I would have expected. Now, again, daily trainer, best going out for those easy runs. I'm not going to take anything away from that. That is why you're going to buy this shoe. But I did take this shoe out for a 10K tempo run. Or actually, I was getting more to the lactate threshold end of the tempo. But my point by telling you about that workout is that I didn't experience anything negative because of this shoe. Usually, I will wear a super trainer or even a race day shoe for some of my faster workouts. And the Supernova Rise performed exceedingly well. My paces were right where I wanted them to be. My heart rate corresponding to the pace was right where I wanted it to be. And because of the slightly firmer foam than I would have expected, and the geometry of the heel and the toe spring, the shoe felt relatively fast. And I say relatively because I want you to keep in mind that this is a daily trainer and you're probably going to use something else for your workouts, but it's good to know that the shoe will actually feel okay when you do pick up the pace, when you have to. I know a lot of us like to do strides at the end of our easy runs just to get our legs turning over, and the Supernova Rise is actually going to feel pretty good when you're doing that. So I don't want anyone thinking that this is a super responsive ride. It's really not, but it gives you a feeling of responsiveness. Now, maybe some of you would argue that that is responsiveness, and I also imagine that it's what we compare it to, and we can't be comparing this to faster shoes or shoes that are made to go faster. But that really is me just talking around the issue. The nugget is that the Supernova Rise is a really solid daily trainer, and I can't imagine that many of you will go wrong by buying this shoe. I often feel like when I test daily trainers that they're only good for the slower paces, which is totally fine because that's what you're going to be using them for. But I think the Supernova Rise does kind of edge out some of those other shoes, mainly because of the midsole foam. So with that, I think Adidas has done a pretty good job with their Dream Strike Plus, and I look forward to trying this foam in other shoes. All right, I'd love to hear your questions about this shoe and if you have run in it. And with that, it's Matt B. This has been my review of the Adidas Supernova Rise. Be kind, be happy, run well. I'll see you in a couple of days.